Hey everyone, welcome to Module 2. In this module, we're going to be watching our first feature film, but we're not going back into history just yet. We are going to watch a film called Yesterday, which is a 2019 film. Let's check this out. 2019 film, it's a British film. We're starting with a modern film. I think I mentioned this in the housekeeping video, just so that we're all used to kind of the cinema language being used. It's all familiar to us. So our first attempt at kind of decoding a movie or a feature film will be something modern here. We want to look at all 5 elements and kind of get a sense of how they impact the storytelling. All right. This film does have all 5 elements working together to create this fun and energetic story. It's got relatable characters and it's got a really sweet ending. We're going to talk about kind of the genre and things like that just moments away. Accolades like awards and things like that. It was well received, but it didn't get really any big awards. The biggest criticism about the film is this unexplored catalyst that sets the story in motion. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and that's kind of the biggest kind of knock on the film. It was written by a guy named Richard Curtis. He wrote Love Actually and Bridget Jones's Diary, and those are both rom-coms. He's very well known for rom-coms. He's famous for that. And then it was directed by a guy named Danny Boyle. He directed stuff like 28 Days Later, 127 Hours, Slumdog Millionaire. These are much more action-y type films. So you have this kind of rom-com-y script directed by kind of action-packed, kind of fast-paced director. So it's kind of an interesting mix, which is one of the reasons why I love the film, that it actually is kind of a rom-com storyline, but it plays more like an action film or a high-paced kind of thriller. So that'll be one of the things for us to look at. The genre is called a jukebox musical romantic comedy. All right. So what's a jukebox musical romantic comedy? A jukebox musical is a stage musical or musical film with the majority of the songs being used are popular pre-existing songs rather than original music composed for the film. So in this film, there's a lot of music by the Beatles. Okay. So it's a band that a lot of people know the music of, and even if you don't are not a big fan of the Beatles, you'll probably recognize most of these songs, and it actually is a really cool kind of element that they add to the movie. All right. It's a traditional linear story. I mean, we start in a certain spot and we just watch what's happening in a linear fashion, how it would play out. There are no kind of bouncing around in time or flashbacks or anything like that. The synopsis, kind of, outline of what the movie is about. Yesterday follows Jack Malik, a struggling musician who wakes up after an accident caused by a worldwide incident to discover he's the only person who remembers the music of the Beatles on Earth. Okay? As he performs their songs, the Beatles songs, as his own, his career skyrockets in a way he never imagined. Along the way, Jack is forced to confront a central choice between pursuing fame and holding on to love that grounded him before success arrived. So that's kind of the synopsis of the film. And the big thing there, the mysterious worldwide incident, that was the big knock. You're going to see how the film kind of starts, this kind of inciting incident that kind of launches the whole story going. And it's kind of this fantastical thing that happens, but they never really explain it. They don't dive into it. And I think if you dove into it too much, it would become more of like a sci-fi kind of thing. And this is really just a romantic comedy at heart. And so I think that's kind of why they didn't really go into it. But it was one of the knocks that you get about the film if you read about it. One of the things narrative-wise that we want you to kind of look into, or I want to kind of address with you and get you to start to understand, is the idea of a midpoint. So films have structure. They have these things that happen, and there's these plot points that are usually hit at very specific, not very specific, but around general time frames in the movie. And one of them is called a midpoint. So that's about halfway through the movie, just like the term kind of suggests, midpoint. It's a turning point in the story about halfway through the acts. About halfway through, that acts as a bridge for the shifting narrative. Often the protagonist's goal shifts, propelling the story into a more intense second half. So you have this thing that happens about halfway through a movie where our main character, our central character, their goal tends to shift to something new. All right. So I want to see if you can find that and identify that as part of the story as you're watching along, right? His goal, as he sets out, is to be a successful musician, to make it and survive and support himself as a musician. That's kind of his goal. But that goal shifts a little bit, and it happens pretty close to about the midpoint of the movie. And I want to see if you can identify that. So make sure you're looking for that. Also, when we're talking about narrative, We also want to be looking at who's our hero, our protagonist, our central character. What's the theme of this film? See if you can kind of identify what the theme of the movie is. And then obviously identify the midpoint shift. See if you can see where his goal shifts. So these are some of the things that we've been looking at over the first couple films. Again, this being our second. And I want you to continue to see if you can identify these things. It'll help you kind of make your way through the movies and identify kind of what's going on or what the storytellers and filmmakers are doing. Color palette, when we talk about cinematography, Danny Boyle is really famous for using colors to tell his stories. In this particular film, when we are watching Jack Malek in his hometown in England, we mostly see muted tones with little pops of color. So if you look at the two kind of screen grabs down below, in the first one, there's the pop of color of red. And then in the second one, there's a pop color of green. So make sure you're kind of seeing if you can identify that. And that's just kind of to help signify that this isn't where he wants to be. He feels kind of stuck in this place. And then when he does get a chance to go on tour and he makes it out to California as his career kind of takes off, you see a lot more color envelop his world, right? So see if you can identify when that's happening and how it's happening. It's a cool little thing to watch that filmmakers do often. Also in cinematography, Danny Boyle is very well known for his camera angles and his positions, kind of where he puts the camera and how he uses it. He uses very creative camera angles. One of the things that he does is a low angle and a Dutch shot, right? And these kind of different angles add kind of energy to this, to the scenes and to the shots, because you're seeing things from positions that you wouldn't normally see things. So this first shot on the left-hand side, that's the two guys, and they're coming out, I think they're coming out of an airport or a hotel, and you can see it's a very extreme low angle kind of looking up, and that's not a view we're used to seeing unless we're a child, right? And then the second angle, you can see he's kind of standing, or this woman, two women and him are standing in front of a mirror, and you can see the camera is kind of tilted like this, okay? And it creates these diagonal lines in the frame, right? That is called a Dutch shot. So anytime we take the camera and we tilt it one way or the other and shift it and kind of canter it, that's called a Dutch shot. And they use that again to create these diagonal lines in the frame, which adds a little bit more tension and unease to particular situations. And it's just because we're not used to seeing things kind of slanted like that, right? So look for those things. And then the other thing he does really well is use wide angle lenses. So both these shots, we are actually close to the people in the first one, but we're using a really wide lens, so we see a lot. And then in the second one, we're a little further back, but again, it's a wide shot. So we not just see the people, we actually see the space in the environment. And he uses wide angle lenses a lot. That's a Danny Boyle kind of thing. And finally, Danny Boyle is very well known for really interesting camera moves, right? The camera movement that he uses adds a lot of energy to the shots. And again, he's doing a lot of action films a lot of the time. So that's why he uses it. But when he does it in this kind of rom-com environment, it kind of changes the vibe of this rom-com, right? So right here, we're going to take a quick look at one of the camera movements that, again, I don't think it fits into a rom-com, but it works really well. So check this out. All right, so we're back. So again, that's one of the moves. There are a bunch of different types of camera movements that he uses, but that's one that really does kind of stand out to me, that when you see it, you're like, wow, that just really doesn't fit. And it makes the film a little bit more fun, in my opinion. So now we're talking about, we're going on to acting performance, all right? So in acting performance, it's a very contemporary acting approach. We aren't trying anything different or unique here. The idea is that when you're watching it, the whole thing I want you to kind of be thinking about is, do you believe these characters? Like, do you believe that these people are who they're portraying, right? Because they're actually not, obviously. But we want to see if what they did as actors is actually something that you kind of buy into and you believe into. So the main characters that we want you to kind of focus on is Jack Malek. He's a tortured artist chasing fame. So I want to see if you kind of believe that. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. Hamish Patel is the actor who plays the role. And again, I want to see if you feel that tortured artist chasing fame kind of vibe from him. Ellie Appleton's played by Lily James. She's his biggest supporter and secretly in love with him. See if you can feel that. See if you can kind of see that we as the audience can feel her kind of secret love for him, but understand why he may not kind of understand it or see it or notice it. Then you have Deborah Hammer, who's played by Kate McKinnon, and she plays this stereotypical kind of big time agent, music agent. And again, it's very stereotypical the way she plays the role, but it adds kind of a little bit of comic relief-ish, and it adds a little bit of tension and stress because you're usually not used to dealing with people that are in that high level. And when you make it there, it's a little bit shocking to you. All right. So check that out in acting performance. Editing pace. Pace is the speed of our story, right? Is the speed of the story moving fast, or is the speed of the story moving slow, right? Danny Boyle likes a faster pace. So again, in rom-coms, they don't tend to move very fast, but I think you'll notice if you pay attention to the pace of the movie, we're moving pretty quick when we watch this movie, and that's because it's a Danny Boyle movie. So I think it like makes the film more palatable to like a wider audience. People who wouldn't necessarily be into rom-coms can kind of palate this film because it has this different style about which it's made. So I find that interesting. One of the ways that we manage or we measure pace in movies is by the average shot length, okay? So average shot length is the measurement of if you took all the shots and how long they ran, just taking the average runtime for all those shots when you put them all together, okay? So the average shot length of a drama is about 6 to 10 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds plus. There's a film that I remember called There Will Be Blood, and that's got average runtime of about 13 seconds per shot, which is more like the 1930s or 40s runtime. The average shot length of current rom-coms run 4 to 7 seconds, and then action films run 2 to 3 seconds is the average runtime of shots, right? Which means it's cut really fast. Yesterday's opening sequence is 55 seconds long. So that's the beginning of the movie up till we see the title of the film. And in that sequence, you get 15 shots. In the 15 shots, the average shot length is 3.7 seconds. So that's actually closer to action than kind of the slower pace of kind of rom-com, right? At the beginning of a movie, you'd think shots would be a little slower so you could kind of identify what's going on, right? But they're getting close to like an action cut rate at the very beginning of the film. Okay, the shortest shot is actually 2 seconds long, which is really fast. That's at the high end, the fast end of action cutting. And then the longest shot is actually 8 seconds. It comes a little bit later towards the end of this 15-shot sequence. And really, the only reason it lasts 8 seconds is because we see one of his buddies come into a bar, and then we track with him and follow him as he sits down with the rest of the friends. So the only reason it's longer is because we're kind of following him to his seat. Other than that, there's not really a reason why it's a long shot, okay? So again, the film is actually cut a little bit more like an action film. So I want to see if you kind of notice that pace as you're watching along. See if you can pick up on it. And then sound design. We're talking about Beatles songs mixed with score. That's what we're watching. They spent $10 million for the rights to the Beatles songs. Beatles songs are very hard to get in your movie. So to have a whole film where they're featuring Beatles songs, that's going to be really expensive. And again, they spent $10 million getting the rights to be able to use the songs. They didn't use original masters. Patel performed most of the covers, so we're actually hearing him sing the songs, which is a little bit, it's an interesting filmmaker's choice, right? We're going to talk about that. Okay, so the next kind of filmmaking term we're going to focus on this particular module is diegetic sound, okay? So diegetic sound is the music exists naturally in the world of the story and is heard by the characters and the audience. So we can hear it as viewers, and the people in the movie would be hearing it as well, right? So that's what diegetic sound is. So what they did is they had Patel, recording the songs live rather than pre-recording and lip-syncing so that it strengthens the film's use of diegetic sound, meaning the audience is hearing the same sound that we are. Or excuse me, the characters in the movie are hearing the same sound as us, the audience, right? So it kind of strengthens that aspect of it. So that's what diegetic sound is, so make sure you kind of get that and know the definition. Non-diegetic sound is just when the audience hears the sound, but the characters in the movie wouldn't necessarily hear it. So if you hear like a dramatic song, like when the shark is approaching a person in the movie Jaws, the person in the movie, the character, can't hear the Jaws theme, only we can. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And there'll be a video in the deep dive page that kind of explains diegetic and non-diegetic sound a little bit better. So make sure you catch that because you might find that in the quiz or something, okay? The music is inseparable from Jack's narrative identity making its way through the movie, right? Early in the film, the recordings, what you're hearing of him singing, they're simple and intimate, reinforcing his authenticity and his emotional connection to the music. The very rough, kind of raw, him just playing for people, right? And as his success grows, the songs become more polished and commercial, mirroring his growing distance from his original self. So kind of see if you can watch that. It's all done on purpose. It's not an accidental thing. These are filmmakers making choices about how they want to deliver the information to the audience so that hopefully it impacts their viewing experience. All right, so pay attention to that when it comes to sound design. These are our cinematic terms. I'll try to highlight these in each module so that you kind of have an understanding of what it is you're looking for, things you need to know as you get to the test and the discussion board posts. Jukebox musical, that's a genre. You want to make sure you know what jukebox musical is. A midpoint, so that's a story structure film term. So make sure you understand what the midpoint is. Again, it's this thing that happens about halfway through a movie where usually it's our protagonist's goal has a shift. It changes to something new. Happens in most features. So see if you can spot that. A Dutch shot is a camera shot where we're not straight, but we are turning the camera sideways to add a little kinetic energy to our shot. Editing pace has to do with the speed at which our story is being told, which has a lot to do with the average shot length, how long we are running shots. If we have very long shots, lasting 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds, then that's going to be a slow-paced movie. If we have a movie where they're cutting every 2 or 3 seconds, that's a very fast-paced movie, all right? Diegetic sound and non-diegetic sound, make sure you understand that. Again, diegetic sound would be the sound that we can hear and the characters can hear, and non-diegetic sound would be sound that only the audience can hear, all right? So try to make this one a little bit quicker. Hopefully you got all the stuff, but make sure you don't skip the stuff on the deep dive page because it will explore some of these elements as well. If you got any questions, please reach out. I hope you enjoy the film. I have a really fun time watching this. It's a very cool film.